Welcome back to Pastor Plek's podcast. I'm your host, Pastor Plek, and joining me in studio is none other than the lead pastor of Eastside Community Church, Holland Gregg. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And also our very own Apartment Life team that we're so grateful for. Really doing a great job with some outreach over there. And what's your apartment?
Bristol Heights.
Bristol Heights on the east side, right?
Northeast
side. Okay, yeah, whatever. It's east of 35, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
East
that's totally east. East of something. Pablo and Bree Mota, welcome. We are in, and
Very
you
excited.
brought a special guest with you. Can you introduce us?
Mr. Ezekiel.
You can probably hear his breathing.
No, don't eat it.
Don't eat it, dude.
There's a lot of germs on that.
Yep.
All right, well, welcome, Ezekiel. We're glad you're here. And then also from the Cody Sparks Band, Senor Cody Sparks.
Yep. Rolling.
Still here.
Yep.
Still here.
So we're about to do a normal podcast where we take some of your questions. We do have some criticism about us being an elitist church. We do also have some criticism that we have too many people with their pants down outside and that they're smoking weed in the parking lot. But I thought we'd get to, that is part of being where we're at. But hey, we're so glad all of you are here. And Pablo and Bree, we were just talking about several situations before we went on, and we figured we'd bring it on air because it's fascinating stuff. We talked about polygamy. We're talking about adultery. We're talking about emotional affairs. Is that grounds for divorce? So I kind of want to just leave it open to you guys because we were all over the place. Which one is your primary topic?
Probably adultery and grounds for divorce.
Okay, here we go. So Jesus, whenever he was talking about adultery in Matthew 5, says, if any one of you looks at a woman lustfully in his heart, he has committed adultery. Now, I think what we talked about before, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that for you, you'd say that's grounds for divorce.
Yeah. Well, no.
No.
Not looking at a woman. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, with the Jesus's elevation.
Yeah.
It's heart posture.
Okay, but like.
But I'm talking about physically going and doing something.
Physical touch.
But I guess what I'm saying is if you're doing something, you're probably there in your heart.
Correct.
So
But it's
at
not
what
solely
point?
a heart
So at what
posture.
point? Right, sure. But at what point? So you're saying, if I'm looking at a woman lustfully in my heart and then I touch her, and what touching then makes it adultery? That's grounds for divorce.
Correct.
And so this is the part that this gets into gray area, and so I wanted to hear what your thought was on that. Is like what makes it adultery?
I think going out of your way to pursue it, whether that's physically, whether that's reaching out and having a conversation, it's left internal and has become external.
Okay.
So if you saw, did you say that if you looked at a woman with lustful intent, that's grounds for divorce?
No.
So what if you go to a grocery store, you lust after a woman, and then she goes to the other side of the grocery store, and then you follow her because you want to look at her again?
But that's still you're not physically doing something with.
You're following her.
But
Well,
she's
okay, so
not
she's
involved in
she's
it
not-
at
There's
all.
no physical touch.
That's just-
She's an
That's
innocent
just creepy
bystander.
voyeurism.
But physical touch is weird too, because texting, for example.
Okay.
Like if he's full on texting a girl for months.
That's emotional.
Yes.
There's no
But
physical.
she's also involved in that. It's not just
emotional.
he sees her and this is all happening within him and she has no idea.
So there has to be involvement from the other
The
party
other
for you
side.
to consider an
So
affair. or
so is
grounds
it
for
after
divorce.
one time that's grounds for divorce? So he goes, he sees a girl, she texts him, he's like, yo, what's up? And then he lusts after her in his heart, and then he's like, I don't want to do that again. Is that grounds for divorce?
Saying hi, yo, what's up?
Well, like he's
when does the line get crossed?
Like at some point, if sex is not your line, then your line has got to be something else. And this is, I think, the part where I don't know if you can create a hard, fast rule, which is why I've always said God's word, God's spirit, God's people. That when you run into anything like this that has a little bit of gray, and is this because you could have. You could just be a complete jerk. You're looking, plant a woman in front of your husband. He lusted. Finally, I'm free, right? There's a lot of marriages that they're just hoping that something like that happens so they can get out. So I think that there's a part of a heart posture on both sides, right, of husband and wife, that I think if you get to straight, like, here's the line, and it's way before sex has happened, I think you're looking for the out as opposed to a way to reconcile, and I don't think that's helpful.
Point number one is God can restore anything.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
He forgives you. So that's where we start. Like, okay, how are we going to fix this?
It was out of the hardness of heart that God granted them a certificate of divorce. And so
if you're out there, if you're looking for a reason just to stay biblically, I mean, I'm like, why are you even married right now in the first place? If you're looking for a reason out, it's like, how do I get out of this and keep it biblical?
Right. You're asking the wrong question. Right. You're Holland, what do you think? Give me your thoughts.
So the passage in Matthew 5, he says...
Also talking to your microphone, thanks. From the production team.
There you go. Is that better? So the passage in Matthew 5, where he talks about if you've looked lustfully or with lustful intent, immediately after that, he goes into grounds for divorce. Mm-hmm. And so, the word he uses there is porneia, Greek word porneia, which can include adultery, can include prostitution, incest, homosexuality, bestiality, all the things that in the Old Testament, the porneia code in the
Leviticus.
The Old Testament law that were forbidden.
Yep.
So it can include, any of those things. It doesn't specify one in particular or anything, but what you're saying is those are all physical acts that physical sexual acts that you do. But you're saying even just the something that could potentially lead to that should also be included in that list. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
like the texting or whatever?
What you mean by the gray area, because it is a gray area. Like, obviously, if he texts a woman, hi, how was your day?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not necessarily being 100% faithful, but is that something to divorce him over? No, but it's something we need to explore and work on.
Yeah, and I guess that's the part, like the faithfulness aspect.
Yeah, why is that not faithful? It's because, like, well, what's your heart behind how's your day?
You know how that, I mean, like somebody could be, hi, how's your day?
For him to be texting another woman.
Right. And so then do you make it like texting another woman, that's the standard?
No.
Right. That's where it's gray, right? And I think that's the part where this is where when you're making decisions like so huge, like what God has joined together, let no man tear asunder, kind of like, because it's so big, for someone to say, and this is where in our country, no fault divorce has really hurt us. I think we can kind of all agree there, is that because there's this thing such as no fault divorce, well, divorce is almost as easy as it was back in the Old Testament of saying, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you, if you're a man to a woman. Like, that's sort of wild. And so when you bring this covenantal relationship into it, and you have to go to the church, which is your covenant coverage, to say, am I in the faith if I seek a divorce from this person because of the wounds and constant hurt I'm receiving, and I need to protect myself and my children or whatever? I think that's a different conversation than what's the line, are you texting me or not? And I think that's why so when it comes to divorce, I feel like bringing the elders of the church in. Remember, this comes like Matthew 18. Like, if at first you're like, hey, it's weird when you text that person like that. Oh, my bad. I didn't even think that was a thing. And you'll be like, that's crazy. Like, you literally were hitting on them without hitting on them. And how could you not know that? And the guy is absolutely clueless. Or maybe he's not. And then he repents and you've won him over. Hallelujah. Or if he still does it, and then you bring in your people and be like, hey, this hurts when you text. Here's the text. That's really a painful thing. You keep pursuing this woman. That's not good. And he's like, oh, my bad. And then he does it again. And then you bring in the elders of the church, and then they go, hey, what's going on? Why are you cannot talk to him or talk to her. If you do, you're, whatever. And then they get to make the decision for you based on them wanting to protect you and being your covering and all that this person is abandoning the marriage. But you'd hope that there's a lot of steps in between that hurt my feelings that you texted that girl and divorce. right? I mean, I think that's where we want to go.
Yeah.
And then I think the problem that or not problem, the question you're going like, let's get beyond texting is because there are some things that feel pretty hurtful that are just one-time events, like a one-time makeout session or whatever. And then you go, again, I think this is why bringing the elders in, if it's not a clear-cut thing, to say like, and the elders like, were you drunk? Were you whatever? And then like, is this your intent? Is your heart posture? Have you given up the faith and your marriage for whatever? And will you seek forgiveness and all of that? And I think otherwise we get back into the, hey, let's just cut it off, move forward. And I don't think that gets to the heart of like God's heart for us. Although clearly God has made a provision for divorce in the case of adultery for a reason. So I think that's sort of an important factor. Holland, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I think there's a difference between grounds for rebuke and church discipline and grounds for divorce. Like is, obviously an unhealthy habit or pattern, something that is, like an unfaithfulness of the heart that is leading to texting or pornography or whatever. Obviously things that need to be confronted and issues of the heart that, like Chris is saying, go through Matthew 18, eventually gets to the church elders, right? You're doing church discipline to deal with it, but that doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as grounds for divorce.
Right.
And so I think if it's in the realm of struggling with pornography and inappropriate text conversations, like to me, I go, that's definitely a church discipline issue, but not necessarily a grounds for divorce issue, and that each case should be handled, with patience, with wisdom, with bringing church leadership into the situation for counseling and care.
Yeah. Cody, your thoughts on that?
I think it goes what your intent behind messaging someone is or talking to someone outside of marriage. For example, I didn't realize that I was doing how, like I would go to play a show and I would meet people and I call them fan friends, because this was like a real deal that we had to like work through. But they would come around a lot and it didn't mean that I was attracted to them or like them, but they were fans that would come to shows, and so I would end up becoming friends with them, and we would talk. But the goal behind it was for them to bring their friends and their friends. So it was more like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna. It's wrong. I'm gonna take advantage of this one to tell that one, and they're gonna bring their friends. I'm like, hey, are y'all coming to the show?
Marketing strategy.
It really is.
Marketing
and then you don't
coworker.
think anything of it. So what was your intent behind it? Well, I wasn't doing it like for sexual reasons or to like quote unquote cheat. I was doing it to like fill people in, but I didn't realize that Aaron was like, that bothered her because she didn't know, and we never talked about it, and I never thought it was really a big deal. So, I mean, I don't think that, me talking to them at that time, Aaron should have been like, hey, we should probably get divorced because you did that.
Yeah. So tell me, why is this so personal for you guys? Like it was kind of interesting as we were talking about it, like this kind of got like, I feel the temperature rise, and I was like, man, we're really getting into like some nuance here. What made this so personal?
Go ahead, bro.
Did you just call her bro?
Yeah.
All right.
We've been told
That's
about,
grounds for divorce.
We've always called each other bro, and people are like, why do you call your wife bro? I think because we started off as like really close friends.
Yep.
That ended up getting married. Anyways.
That happens.
Well, early in our relationship, he did cheat. 3 times was penetrative. 1 time was not. And it took years.
Well, you have heart
working
wounds.
Together.
Yeah.
Working through it, and
this was before you were married or when you were married?
Before.
Yeah.
All right. So before you were married, he cheated. And were you guys Christian then? I'm just sort of.
Would probably say we were, but not really.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Nowhere to where we are now.
Yeah.
But point being, I said I've gone through this 3-4 times. I'm not going to go through it a 5th time. But now I'm realizing, okay, that might not be biblical, because to me, it wasn't like, oh, if you go have sex with someone else a 5th time, I'm out. It's if you do anything a 5th time with another woman who's not me, I'm not going through it again. So hearing that, like, oh, well, that's not necessarily biblical, like, is kind of infuriating. Not saying I'm here looking for an out, because I'm not. Like, I truly believe we're
Right.
past this. It's not going to happen. We're happily married. But the thought of potentially being put in that position again and having to just be like, oh, well, you know, he's sorry again.
Right.
That's because it happened to you 3 times, and
Yeah.
you know the hurt behind it.
And there's other people that it's happened to multiple times. And I know that they're also being told, hey, you don't really have grounds in this situation because it was just a kiss or it was just a text. How are we supposed to
Yeah.
communicate to those people and encourage them to stay when they've been hurt so many times?
Well, if you like, this is where forgiveness is not a dating quality. Like, and what I mean by that is, you don't like if you're with somebody before you're married and they do something like that, I'd be like, I'm out, right? Because there's no covenant holding you together, and I think that's probably part of the reason why. I'm not saying I don't want to get into why you did that, like, because who knows? I'm not even gonna go there, but. For another person, potentially, the reason why you're just like, I mean, and the relationship's serious, but it's not like we're married. Like, I really feel like some people could go to that sort of extreme in the dating relationship, but within the marriage relationship, that's why I always say, like, the transactional nature of sexual relationships outside of marriage are so huge that you have got to constantly perform better than you last performed, or else that person's going to leave. And so that's why you see that nature sort of come out in outside of wedlock sexual relationship. Can you add on to that? Just jump on there somewhere.
Just say
What do you want me to
something.
add to that? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I just think, well, I mean, I just have noticed the transactional nature of non-married sex is so different than married sex that if someone gets upset with somebody because they aren't performing, not even necessarily sexually, but like I don't know, you were late to whatever, you made me look bad, you said something cutting in public, and I was like, oh, that was offensive. I'm like, oh, that's grounds for me to have sex with somebody else because you did that to me. It's a very transactional nature.
Okay, I would. Here's what I would add.
Yeah.
In outside of a Christian view of sexuality, marriage, a one flesh union, sex is going to be the way you see anything, like you said, transactional. The way you see anything else in life is, what do I get out of it? Is it worth my time? And so the Christian view of sex is about, sowing into this one flesh union rather than what can I get from the other person. It's, how can I sow into something that, that God has joined together as one, that is sacred, that is special. And so, yeah, I think it does make sense. There's a logical connection or correlation between a Christian view of marriage and sex and a worldly or secular view that's going to be, the Christian is going to view it completely differently, and that it's not just a transaction, something to consume, but it's something to give of yourself.
Do you feel more confident, Bree, now that you're married, or is that same fear lingering?
You can be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
Or you can lie,
the
either way.
fear's always there, but it's not as much as it was. Like, it took,
How long
I would
have y'all
say,
been married?
5 years.
Like
We've
2
only been married
years?
for 2 years.
Okay.
We've been together for almost 8. So it took, I'd say, 5 years of getting to a point where I'm like, okay, no,
There it is.
I trust
Wait, how many years?
5.
Yeah.
Pablo.
It is almost always 5 years from the D-Day. D-Day is Discovery Day. And when you talk about a fair recovery, it's 5 years to the days when it starts to get better.
This is actually, that's 100% true.
How Cody, how would you know?
Because it does take 5 years.
I've researched it.
That's some good
I
research.
Googled it. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I lived this. Yeah, and it was funny because we always talk. I mean, let's say we were pretty much what, Chris, like
2019.
well, yeah, but
Yeah.
January of 2020, and you were like, it takes 5 years. And I'm like,
That's right. That's
what?
right.
And I mean, really, pretty much to the T, it was that.
Yeah.
Like almost perfect. And I even texted him the other day, and I was like, holy moly, like this is pretty weird that was it the whole time. So now that when we talk with guys that have screwed
through
up
that.
and done all this, and they're like, yeah, I want to work it out and blah, blah, and are you sure? Because I'm just going to let you know, for you, it's really going to be brutal, and you're just going to have to take it if you want to make this work, and it's going to take about 5 years. If guys really go, what? And I'm like, I'm not even in year 5 yet, and I can tell you, like, I'm in 3 or 4, and it's still not good because she might wake up having a dream about it, or think about something, or you say something that you didn't even think twice about that brought up that wound for her, and we're off to the races again, and you feel like it's day one all over again.
Right.
So that's where it's like, man, if you guys aren't doing this together, I can't imagine being outside of the Christian world trying to come back from an affair.
Yeah.
There's like no way it is, because like the way that like the world views things is, it's like everybody does it.
Right.
So it's like no big deal, especially emotionally.
Yeah.
They're like, it's no big deal. Everyone does it. So why not?
Yeah.
And then it turns into the physical side of it. And he's like, man, wash your hands clean on it.
All right. So you guys are pretty much healed from this then.
Like Cody said, like sometimes a dream will come up. Like I said, I'm still in contact with one of the girls because part of the healing process is I went and had a conversation with her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She was actually at our wedding.
What?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you invited her to the wedding?
Yeah.
Was she a
What I didn't
bridesmaid?
include,
No.
What I didn't include is 2 of the 3 women were Pablo's best friends.
Yeah.
So
Best friends.
best friends.
Oh, that's fun. Were you also a best friend at the time? Sorry. No.
Why?
No, I mean, like, I think that's the problem, right? In our culture is that I was actually watching, this is probably way too much detail, Holland, so bear with me. But in the 1920s or when in the early 1900s, when the temperance movement came around and the speakeasies opened up as prohibition came, that was the first mixing of men and women drinking, FYI. And so after prohibition ended, the bars continued to be a place where men and women mingled, whereas before it was only somewhere where men went and prostitutes went. Sort of a wild reality of what prohibition sort of brought was anyway. So what it created was that men and women interacting a lot more. Now, I'm not saying that men and women can't work together, be coworkers, be friends, all that. But what I am saying is what happens when we kind of kid ourselves and say we're just best friends. It creates somebody in that relationship is not a friend, and nobody wants to own it because then that would be weird and they lose their shot. But inevitably, there's one of the people in that relationship that is thinking more than friends.
You know, it's funny but not funny. I remember probably like a year or 2 ago, you said that on a podcast, and I think we were together listening to it, and I was like, that's not true. and then I think she said something, and I was like, because I've always had like a girl, quote unquote, best friend. And then I sat there and I tried to think of one instance where I wasn't into them or they weren't into me. And I was like, crap, it is true.
I didn't believe it, but I had a best guy friend that was actually friends with Pablo, and ever since the wedding, I haven't heard from him.
Of course not, because he was just hoping that Pablo would die.
Jeez.
I mean,
I'm just being real here.
I'm just telling you, call it like it is. He was like, as soon as he's out of the picture, I'm in like Flynn.
Well, and I told her, because I was like, because I think she kind of tried to deny it at that point, but I was like, I'll tell you this, if for most dudes that have a girlfriend that they like, a friend that's a girl that they think is like even semi-attractive, if the girl was like, hey, you want to do something, they would do it 100% of the time.
100%.
So I was trying to tell her, like, I know you think he's like a brother to you, but I'm telling you, if I was in the picture and you were willing to do something, he would 100% do it.
Yeah. Outside the body of Christ, that's going to for sure happen. And even inside the body of Christ, there's a huge tendency for that to happen. So, yeah. All right. So, okay. So now you guys are going to counseling and that's working.
Yeah, but we're not going to counseling for that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, I think we've really worked through this.
Yeah. Like it's not an issue between us anymore. I think the only time it becomes an issue, if ever, is like Cody said, if a memory pops up and
Or like we did our testimony, which we went in probably the most in depth into the situation that we ever did, and the emotions came up. Like I found myself getting emotional, and it wasn't like it directed at him. It was just, wow, I've never put into words how it really made me feel. That like going through how I found out, like all those things brought up those emotions again, but it didn't affect.
It doesn't cause like separation between us.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And you don't feel defensive.
Me?
Right.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you're just like, yeah, I own that.
I was so stupid.
Yeah.
Every single time.
I think the big thing is
stupid.
too, though, is all that happened before you got married. I know it's not right, but when you both said I do, and you stood before God and were like, hey, we're going to do this. I'm not saying it's a clean slate, but
Man,
that's a clean slate for you.
Yeah, I think that is really powerful. I think the struggle, with, because it kind of gives you like, hey, we're really in this together. We have a whole ceremony. You kind of go into the whole thing. For those couples that have had an affair within a marriage covenant, that gets really hard. Not because everybody, and I remember I've told you, I've had somebody call me because everybody wants proof. How can I make sure they're not going to do it again? I had this, I've told everyone this a billion times, but one more time it won't hurt. I had this lady, I'll tell Holland because I don't think he knows this one. I had this husband called me, and he would listen to, I think, one of our sermons on affair recovery. And he called the Pastor Plek podcast hotline. And I talked to him, and he goes, hey, my wife's about to go on a business trip to Germany. She is going to be with the guy that she had an affair with. What can I do to make sure she doesn't step over the line and, step out on me?
Go with her and hold her hand.
Yeah, and I was like, here's what, and I remember saying this, and I kind of feel bad about it, but not really, because I was
sarcastic.
Yeah, but it was true. I said, here's what you do. Here's how you make sure she doesn't have an affair. You find a closet, and you put her inside of it. And then you get a padlock, and you lock it. And he's like, okay. And the guy, I could feel like he was like taking notes, like, like he's going to like put her in the thing and shake it or yell at her or something, and then that'll remind her of what the prison he was in or something. And it's like, then you leave her there the entire trip until the trip is over, and you send her back to work, and you file a missing persons, and then you sort of like go through the motions. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, there's no way you can 100% prevent her from having an affair. You've got to at some point trust the Lord. Now, if she's had an affair and she keeps having an affair, you got to bring her to the church. And there's got to be church, like, because there isn't like the rule of thumb. The rule of thumb was like you just beat your wife with a stick as wide as damn your thumb, and there's not that. That's where the rule of thumb came from, by the way. All right, so
Did not know that.
yeah, fun fact.
Fun fact. Fact of the day.
Pastor Plek's podcast.
Yeah, wow.
That's rule of thumb. Anyway, but you don't do that. You bring her. You say, hey, listen, elders, I need help with this. I cannot lead her in a way to not cheat on me. I love her. I want to stick this out. I want to reconcile with her. But eventually the elders might say like, hey, she keeps running to other men, and she's abandoning the faith. And so the wisdom would be here, like, to protect you and your family, you need to let her go. But you do that like after a lot of trying, and then the wisdom would have to come to the elder board to kind of help, or elder council to help you walk through that situation. This is such a tough deal when someone's dealing with that amount of pain and it keeps happening. It is super hard. But I think that's the grace of God, right? Is that we got to do all that we can to reconcile, live at peace with one another. But it's super hard.
Wow.
Yeah, super hard. So there you go. But that's why it takes 5 years, because for a while you're going to want to know, as the person that's been cheated on, what can I do? And you want to go, the classic, counterfeit gods, power, control, approval, and comfort are all going to want to come up. I want to know that you love me, and you want to have a lot of affirmation. I want to know that I want to have in control. I want to know where you are at all times. And if you ever go to somewhere that's not okay, I want to make sure that I am there. I send someone there. I want you to feel bad about it, so I have power over you. I want to kind of have that guilt kind of going. power and comfort is like I will escape from my pain by doing something that I enjoy that you're not allowed to have fun doing. So that's usually where the four things that I've seen that couples that are struggling with an affair sort of like go to or like the person that's been cheated on go to as a place somehow to be a sane person and the coping mechanisms as opposed to Jesus. Whereas ultimately the cry should be, I'm going to get on my knees before God and ask him, please, will you give me peace even though my heart is ripped to shreds? Jesus, you died on the cross for them. I'm praying for your glory and their good. I'm praying for your glory and my good. That's ultimately, and then having the way you're going to heal and then having the people of God surrounding you where you're not alone in that. So...
Okay, is there, and maybe, I don't know where everyone lands on this actually, but I'm like, there's on, what you just said is you need to trust God and you need to trust your spouse. Like, so that instance of like going on a work trip with someone you had an affair with, to me, I'm just like, that's crazy.
I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I'm like, at some point, there's trust in God, but there's also just like, there's some wisdom.
We have to set boundaries.
You don't want to be a legalist and just, you can't make enough rules to keep someone from sinning.
Right.
Like, we get that. You can lock them in the closet. It's the only way. Like, I get what you mean. I agree.
Yeah.
But there's also like some wise boundaries that are like, like we talked about, guys having a best friend that's a girl, like,
does not work.
How often does that go well? And I'm like, you can go so far on that to where it's like, oh, I don't talk to any woman other than my wife ever, and you're like, okay, that's
too far.
That's kind of weird too.
Do you remember do you remember Israel Gibbs back in the day? He and his wife, like he had an emotional affair with his coworker back in the day, and then he's like, what do I do? I said, you got to leave your job. And so he did, which was wild. And then it was wild. So like that, so I think that's
to me, that's where like when Jesus says if your right eye, your right hand causes you to sin, like cut it off. Like I feel like there is some measure of what may even feel like an extreme action or decision to cut off something that might be tempting you to sin, and that may be you leave your job or I mean, the fact of like you had an affair with someone and you just stayed at that job, like that's just
that's where I feel like his church needed to come in and step in. That's why I was like, if you want to know what you can do, nothing. But what you can do is bring the church in around. Otherwise, you're constantly just setting yourself up to get destroyed.
But even before the church, though, like as a husband, to lead your wife to say, this is not a great place to stay working.
Yeah. Right. I think so. I
don't know. Am I crazy? For that?
No, you're
you're making sense. And I think more than just wise boundaries, I think respectful boundaries.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Because
respectful to the other person.
Yes, because you should flee from sexual immorality. Like if you're in the place where you've already committed sexual act, adultery with another woman, like you should not be around her. You should not see her. You should not talk to her. Because whether you would like to recognize it or not, that's a temptation.
100%.
And so we went through this because, like Bree mentioned, those two of those girls were quote unquote best friends at the time that I had been best friends with for years. And part of me was like, okay, yes, like what I did was wrong, this and that, but I can't cut them off. Like they're a best friend, Yeah. And it was not interesting, I guess. I don't know what it was, but I fought that for the longest time because I was like, you're trying to take my freedom away. Like, this is my friend. I can't just cut them off. And that's totally disrespectful to her, right? To be like, hey, the girl that I cheated on you with, I'm about to go hang out with her. We're about to go get some lunch. Like, that makes zero sense. So, yes.
Is that what you did back in the day?
What?
You just like go get lunches with these girls?
We would go smoke weed.
Oh.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And then get lunch. But so it's not just wise, but I think respectful, you know?
Yeah.
And like you're saying, if you're a husband that's been put in this position, like the respectful thing to do would be, unfortunately, I have to quit my job. Like I shouldn't be around this person, and it might not make sense financially or whatever, but I don't know. I just think it would be the right thing to do.
I think boundaries, but I think even boundaries, like even before an affair happens, are wise. I know that sounds, and I think that's where you're getting at. So like Adrienne and I have the thing where she doesn't ride alone in a car with other dudes. If she has a meeting with somebody, it's going to be at the church. If she has a meeting with like Cody or Grayson or whatever, it's going to be at the church if I'm not there. Just so that there's never even like a date like feeling would ever happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's important to talk that through, and then it's incumbent upon me to kind of like lead her in a wise way, as well as receive her feedback if something makes her uncomfortable. And so we talk about that a lot, of like where our comfort levels are on different things. So I think that to me is really helpful. Of course, Adrian's the most open person on the entire planet, so you never wonder what she's thinking. So that makes things really easy for me. But I do feel like that is one of the things that's challenging. Is not everybody has that open communication, because there's a lot of people that don't say, hey, that makes me feel icky or weird, and they don't know how to communicate it, so they don't. And so then that
you hide it.
You hide it. Yeah, you hide it. That may be the best. So when you feel icky or weird, you just pretend, or not that you pretend, it's just that you just don't bring it up because it's uncomfortable. And I think that's where a lot of people go, in the hiding zone, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and the world tells you, like, especially for women, like, oh, you're too controlling, you know? You shouldn't try to set these rules that you're too insecure about yourself. I think there's a lot of things that
You're saying, so to set a rule for your husband?
Yeah. Even if there has been no affair, or if even there has been an affair, it's usually pointed to like, oh, you're just insecure about yourself or about your relationship. But it's like, that's why I love that Reengage, the marriage ministry, has
is this a Reengage plug? I love this.
Yes,
This is good.
soon enough.
Let's see what you did there.
That there's an expectations chapter. Because I feel like, I don't know why, it's just something that, I don't know, maybe in premarital, they talk about it, but I feel like it's just something that doesn't get brought up, which is like, what are my expectations for you as a husband, as a wife? What do I expect you to do or not do, or how you should act in this situation or not act? And I think it's like crucial to not get put in those positions of like, hey, you're a little too friendly with that girl, and the person had no idea, like, oh, I thought we were just being cool, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in having those quote unquote hard conversations, they're really not that hard. You can prevent so much hurt, I think, on both sides.
Yeah, being transparent and being open.
Yeah.
Being like, you can go through whatever you want. I don't have anything to hide.
Yeah.
Even if you feel uncomfortable, well, okay, here, you can look. That's fine.
Where do you guys land on like phones, for example? Do you each have each other's passwords, and can you look at each other's phones whenever?
Yeah.
You?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Cody?
Yes. And locations.
And location. Yeah,
it's a thing nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
Forever, I used to think that was the creepiest, weirdest thing.
Yeah.
And it's so dumb, and it made zero sense to me. And I was like, why? But then when I started getting defensive about it, I was like, well, what am I trying to hide?
Yeah.
Yeah. And see, that's where we had some friends that was the case, where the guy got super defensive, had nothing to hide, but got super defensive about it. And again, I think it was trying to point to like, you just don't trust me.
That's right. Correct.
But it's like,
well, if allow me to earn, I always say, especially in one of these situations, forgiveness is given, but trust is earned.
Yeah.
And so I think like, if you've had a breach of trust, then showing your location or whatever is such a blessing.
well, this is with no breach of trust, but just like,
Even then, I still think, well, then why? Because it's so convenient for me. Instead of getting upset that Adrian's late, I at least know where she's at.
yeah.
True.
Yeah.
If I didn't respond for like 30 minutes, he would freak out thinking something happened to me. So it's more so like,
Just convenient.
Yes, on that area, correct, for sure.
it's not a trust thing, it's a safety thing and a convenience
You
thing.
guys all look at your spouse's location?
No.
Oh yeah.
I mean, not on a regular basis, but
Oh.
not answering.
That's funny. I don't
or-
think there's anything wrong with it. It's funny. I've never done that before.
Oh man,
I'm
it's
just-
so great. Well, because I mean, Adrian's not exactly an on-time machine, and so
Yeah.
to know where she's at and like how much longer we have to wait is really good.
Yeah, but at least your reasons behind it are that. Some people's reasons behind it are, I need to see actually where they are.
Yeah.
Well,
Because they've lost trust.
I think probably like Jenny and I just talk so much. Like if I'm like not here talking to you, like
Yeah.
We probably just call each other talking on the phone and
Yeah, that's
how you
good.
doing, where are you? So like we pretty much always know where the other person is anyway, just because in between pretty much everything else we always call it. I don't know
That's
if that's
good.
like way more than other couples or not.
That's
but
probably a little more.
we talk and text like all the time.
Well, that's
Like,
good.
Good for you though. That's awesome.
Yeah, way to go. That's good talking and texting. You should have like be a commercial.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Good.
All right. Let's yeah. So all right. So I feel like that we kind of nailed this
And consequences.
consequences. We could
Earthly consequences.
earthly consequences. Well, where are you going with that? Sorry.
Well, they were kind of talking about like people, how they move on or
yeah.
trust or not, or now I need your phone, like
Yes.
access to your phone. Now it's this. So your consequences, your heavenly, with your heavenly Father, they're taking care of, they're forgiven. Earthly consequences, if you're toast. I mean, really though, think about it. I mean, you lose all freedom.
Yeah.
Of
Oh, I
your
see what you're
life.
saying.
So
There's a period
your
of time where you're
consequences on
earning trust,
earth
right.
are different.
You're
Like
saying it makes sense if you're the one who broke trust.
Yeah.
It makes sense that you lose your freedom because you've got to earn it back.
That's right.
And you basically
100%. It's you check in this amount of time. Where are you going? Where are you at? When the questions are asked, you can't get mad about it.
Right.
You just have to sit there and take it. When they get frustrated and mad and angry, you have to sit there and take it. When they are like, you can't go on this trip because you did this.
Yeah, and I love this because the scriptural support for that would be 1 Peter 3. Live with your wife in an understanding way. After you've ripped apart the trust, then you've got to be understanding that she is going to be a little bit less trusting of you in whatever situation you're in, and you're going to try and give her as much security possible, other than her security has God in the Lord. We understand that, but you want to live with her in an understanding way, not to build anxiety, but to release it.
Correct.
Yeah, that's good. Did you guys have to go through that period of like a leash, so to speak?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think the leash didn't actually go into full effect for like a year later because he fought it so hard. It was that you're taking away my freedom, and getting to him to understand like, no, like you brought this upon yourself. It's not me.
Was this when you guys were in California or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. To set the record straight, I was like 19.
Hey,
20.
listen. You were in
So,
California.
I was pretty-
That's all you have to
Don't
say.
start justifying.
I'm not.
Hey, you can't use age.
Man, praise the Lord.
and we're back.
Praise the Lord that
justifying.
we're not holding me accountable. Not that we're not like that. None of my stuff from when I was 19 is being brought up. That would have been a disaster.
I'm just saying, to put into perspective, like I was pretty dumb and immature,
Accurate.
and
Oh, your response.
yeah, not that like, oh, I was 19. That's why I cheated. No, but just to say like I was pretty dumb and immature, and I thought I had some type of rights after,
Well-
that shouldn't have gotten stripped away, which is stupid.
Yeah. But I can. I mean, yeah, I understand. It's again in the not married world. It's like
And not
And
in the
non-Christian.
outside world. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
California.
and California.
California.
I mean,
Yeah. All
like
up agreed.
it's like the land of.
Everything was.
You don't know who's a
Recipe
he
for
and who's a her. Or,
It also didn't help that everyone else in his life was telling him that I'm the one that's overreacting
Yeah.
and I'm being overbearing, and what he did was not that bad. And
Yeah.
that's an earthly.
California.
Yeah, I'm telling you, people
very
they're just
California.
like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal.
And
Yeah.
then you came to Texas.
Man,
where
praise the Lord though for I just
Yeah.
I look at you guys now and I'm like,
one
man,
happy campers
you're married,
have a
Yeah.
child.
got a baby,
Mm-hmm.
you're like you love each other, you've repented, it's just praise the Lord. It's
Yeah,
all.
And you
I think
had
this
to
is gonna be a
work
really cool part of your
for it.
story, and you guys are gonna be a great pastoral family to be able to walk people through a lot of hurt and pain because you understand. That's really good.
Yeah.
So, so tell me that one time where he asked you if he'd go hang out with the girl that he had slept with.
yeah, we actually were in college at this point, and she went to the same college we did, and they were in auto or something together.
Otto.
Yeah. Yep.
He was going to school for cars, and so was she. So they were in the
Okay,
same class.
automotive class.
Automotive. They were in the same class, and she invited like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while. School like had just started. She's like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while because of everything. You should come over and we should smoke. And he's like, oh, I have to ask Bree. So
You guys were just dating right now though. You weren't married yet.
This was like
Yeah.
Okay.
2 or 3 years in. 2 years
Yeah.
in.
Oh, okay.
And how long after you had
A
already hooked
year.
up with her?
A year.
Okay.
Really? I thought it was less time than that. I don't know.
That makes it worse.
Because we
was
weren't friends for that
maximum-
long.
Maximum of a year.
Yeah.
Maximum year.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Comes, asks me permission, and my response is exactly what you can imagine. So he took it as, oh, well, she said, no, I can't go to her house, so she can come to my house, and we'll just hang out on the balcony because nothing's going to happen on the balcony.
Beg
Well,
differ.
mind you, her cousin was my best friend, and we were all stoners at the time, and we all shared, like, the devices, the bongs, if you will.
If you will.
It was
The
not a bong,
paraphernalia.
but it was similar.
Paraphernalia.
Here we go. So he
Okay.
blocks me on text messages and calls,
Wait,
but posted.
No, I blocked you on Snapchat because
No,
you were
'cause
able to call me.
Pablo.
Okay. You do have a
Snapchat-
better memory than me.
Snapchat
So.
is how I found out about it because he took a picture of
Oh,
this
that's
bong
right.
and posted it, and I recognized this bong belongs to this girl.
Wow. I don't
So
know enough about
she-
weed, so you can recognize a bong.
Yeah.
Well, like it'd be recognizing a cup.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And because,
For example,
like,
It was very unique.
so knowing, hey, this girl
I'm
asked
just
to
guessing.
hang out today. I know
I
this
never
bong
did it.
does not
Really,
belong to
actually, I
Pablo.
never did
I
that.
know it belongs to this girl.
kind of.
I put two and two together. He had her over at his house. So I call him, freaking out.
Wait, were you living with him at the time?
No,
Okay.
this was a year before I moved in with him.
Oh.
2 years.
Was you moving? Never mind. Go on. We'll go on.
So many questions.
So many.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So I start blowing up his phone, calling him. He's saying I'm overreacting, that there's nothing that's going to happen. They're just smoking. Well, I get in my car, and I'm on the way over there to physically assault this woman.
Nice.
And
Do
he
you have
knows.
any knife or any weapons?
No.
Just hands.
You're
He
just saying-
knows
Just
that
saying.
Just
that
1-2
is my
combo.
intention because I said some words and told this girl to leave. So now I'm furious because I get there and she's not there. So I'm thinking something did happen because he told her to leave. Like, he has something to hide.
Oh.
And that's when I gave the ultimatum, like, you pull out your phone right now and this person is blocked, or this is the last time you're ever going to see me.
And how'd that go?
I mean, he did it.
For how
I
long?
literally said
It was an easy decision.
that was the last time he talked to.
Said girl. Was she
Said
at the
girl.
wedding?
No, that's not the one that was
Oh.
at the wedding. The one that was at the wedding was the one. They were actually really close friends, and he told me multiple times, like, it was strictly physical, like there was no emotional anything.
Right.
It occurred at a party when they were both drunk, and she would keep reaching out and apologizing. And Paul was like, well, you just have, like, if you have a conversation with her and you never want to see her again, you never want me to talk to her again, that's fine. So we met up, had a conversation, and it had to have been the Lord. I don't really know what happened, but I wasn't fine with them being friends, but I could see that there was a real friendship there, and there was remorse on both sides. And ever since that day, she would reach out to me. She never reached out to him privately, which also showed that there was remorse. And she would just say, like, hey, wish Pablo happy birthday. Hey, I'm going to be in Texas if you want to grab lunch. So I could see a sense of respect on her side. And I know that Pablo truly valued their friendship.
That's wild that you brought her two ladies to your wedding.
Just
No,
one.
it was just one.
Just one. Okay.
The girl that I went over to fight, we never reconciled anything.
Yeah. She was a terrible friend.
Well,
Yeah.
we have a surprise for you.
Yeah. She's here. Come on in, Samantha. I'm just kidding.
What is her name, really, Samantha?
No,
No, I'm
I-
just kidding. I know, I just joke.
All right, let's talk ultimatums real quick. So, how many ultimatums did you lay down?
Was it just two?
I think just two that I can think of, yeah.
And
Were
one
these pre-marriage?
pre-marriage ultimatums.
No. I think the porn pre-marriage?
Yes.
Oh. Very, not long before we
Because
got
that's
married.
what caused me to actually start taking it serious.
I don't know.
The recovery process.
Do you think that ultimatums are healthy? Not y'all two, obviously. I'm talking to you.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
I think they can be, but I think they can also get really messy. But I think that, like, both times the ultimatum needed to happen for him to realize I was serious, because I think I quickly forgave a lot of things that he did where he assumed I would just forgive everything or I would just get over everything, until I was like, no, like, it's so serious to me that I will walk away if it doesn't change. And that's when he's like, oh crap, this isn't just something else that she's going to brush under the rug, or something that she says, hey, maybe you should change this, but she's actually okay with it. So in those instances, it was almost necessary.
So I know this Man, so many thoughts. But was there ever a thought like, he's a stoner dude that is not serious about life? What am I doing with myself? I need to get out of here.
She was stoning too.
I know.
I was a stoner too. But even with that, like, I begged him to quit so many times.
Like smoking weed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he?
It wasn't just
Where are we
weed.
at in this
Yeah.
journey?
Have we quit weed yet?
No.
Oh, right now?
Oh, right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're sober now. We are sober now.
Man. All right. Well, here we go.
I'm still getting to know you guys. So.
Oh, yeah.
And Paul's like, no.
Last time
Wait,
Never know
I
what I'm gonna
smoked
find
was
here at Wolf
like,
Branch.
2022, I think.
yeah, so 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Way to go. I'm really proud of you guys for that.
Thanks.
But isn't an ultimatum like, wouldn't you, in certain what's the intent behind it maybe? Because sometimes it's like a good old classic swift kick in the butt to get you going.
I guess.
Or is it like, oh, I never really thought.
That's what it was for me, because
Right.
I think it was easy for me to not see that what my actions could potentially lead to me losing her, like actually for good. And so when she was like, if you don't do this, like I'm gone, that's when I was like, oh crap, like what I'm doing is actually has a negative effect. Like it can actually lead us to never see each other again.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean I was perfect after that, especially with porn. But I think with porn specifically, it was like maybe 2-3 years in of her knowing and me saying like, yeah, I'm trying to stop, but never really doing anything about it. And so when she gave me that ultimatum, it was like, dang, like I actually need help. Like I actually need to do something about it. And again, it doesn't mean I was perfect. I was far from perfect after that.
But has it changed, Bree? Has he
Yeah.
changed?
Yeah.
But so it's wild to hear. I mean, because it's not like that happened 100 years ago. This happened like a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and how did you see him progress with the porn things?
Like progress negatively?
Like, no, positive progress. Like,
Move forward. How did he
like, how
move
did it get
forward?
worse? Well, wait.
Well, I have a question though, because like we've talked about this before, and I never had I never was like addicted to that.
Yeah.
I would rather go physically touch someone and do that.
Yeah.
Was it because you were missing something from her, that like non-sexual things, or you were just
No,
wouldn't get it from her, then go and do that?
no, not at all.
I'm just kind of curious how it.
Yeah, my story is I was sexually abused by my older cousin, who's a female. I like to point that out because I've not said that before, and it sounded like it was a dude, but it wasn't.
Yep, I thought.
And
thought it was
so
a dude.
I was probably like 6, 7, and then got into my dad's porn stash one day, and I was the only boy in my family. I have like 7 or 8 girl cousins. So I grew up very like emotional, like not your average like boy. And so growing up, it was really hard for me to connect with a woman in a sexual way, or even like kissing, whatever. And so having that porn in the darkness, where it was like I get to satisfy this quote unquote need, and then in the light, it was like, oh, I don't really know how to connect with girls. Like, yeah, I wish that I could have just been like you, like, oh, I would rather just go and have sex than watch
That's
porn.
not me. That's not a good thing, though. Neither. Neither of these are good.
I did that for so long that it was just the norm, to where even when I was having sex and I could, go and have sex with other girls, it was just part of what I did and who I was. It's just I watched porn.
Yep, that makes sense.
So it wasn't out of like not being satisfied with sex, because like when we first started dating, it was like all the time, all day.
So tell me how you got free, because I think that's for wives out there listening, they're like, what's the blank 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 secret, Bree? Tell me what I need to do. What was it?
I mean, I wish I could say we're fully free from it.
Yeah.
We're still not.
Sure.
But
how do
we're
you
much
handle
better.
how do you handle, and how has he progressed? Progressed positively.
Well, progressed positively. After the ultimatum, he put blockers on his phone that I manage. I mean, this most recent time we started doing counseling specifically for tackling this. And it's not just him, it's also me, like as a wife, what I can be doing, how I can support him. But we started doing a daily
How do you
check-in.
not get offended personally every time?
I used to get offended every time, but I realized like this isn't an issue with me.
How did you come to realize that? Because if I could take whatever that thought is and put it in every woman's head of what it would help the man grow, because he's not going to get beat down. So what is it? Is it trusting the Lord? Is it like all that?
Okay, so I've also dealt with a porn struggle in the past, which I knew it wasn't anything to do with Pablo, so I think that helped play into it. But also it was just recognizing how much, like when I sin, I'm not sinning because of Pablo. I'm not sinning because of whoever. I'm sinning because I'm a broken person.
Right.
So realizing like, hey, Jesus has forgiven me for so much more. And my husband's telling me, hey, it's nothing you're doing. It's nothing about you physically. You could be the hottest girl in the world and I would still struggle with this. And just taking him at his word and trusting, like, he hates the fact that he struggles with this.
Yeah.
And there are times, especially when I was postpartum, it was super hard because I did not like the way I looked. And it was easy for him to fall back into it because I also wasn't wanting to be intimate. So I fell into the thoughts of, oh, I'm not attractive anymore. My body's not what it used to be. He probably wishes that, I was still 16-year-old me.
Want to be 18. Just protecting us.
Keep going.
So just bringing that to him and getting reassurance from him, but also trusting, like, it's not, like, I have to choose every day that it's not me, and I have to run to the Lord because he's the only one that reassures me and tells me that I'm enough, and will also equip me to then turn around and support him.
That's really good. So Pablo, then how has progress looked for you? Like, is it like whenever I struggle, I go and confess sin to her? How do you like, what's the strategy?
Yeah. It's been a really long journey. I think from when I first started to try to do anything about it, it's been like 5 years probably. And I know for most of these 5 years, I felt super helpless and like, I will never defeat this. But I think I've done everything, like blockers on my phone. I can't have Safari on my phone. I can't have like any apps. Like I've found ways to access porn through apps that you wouldn't think they're possible, but it is. And so like my phone is very boring. It's very like, I only go on it for necessary things. I don't go on YouTube. Like there's just so many things. And this isn't like Bria's like, you can't do this.
So she doesn't give you an ultimatum for those things.
No, it was me realizing like, well, one, I genuinely don't ever want to watch porn again. I hate it. And realizing like, well, if I'm home alone and I'm sitting on YouTube, babe, it's going to lead me to lusting or watching porn, masturbating, whatever. So realizing through time certain things that I can do and can't do. I think obviously spending more time with the Lord and just growing closer to him has done a tremendous work in my life. And this last time, I don't know why, I was at your
Men's group.
Yeah, men's group one night. And I just felt God telling me like, you need to give up sugar, you need to give up alcohol, and you need to give up caffeine.
Wow.
Because those are things I had felt convictions about. Just really addicted to sugar. I love sweets. Really addicted to caffeine. I was drinking like 3-4 cups of coffee before even leaving Sam's group.
Is that something wrong with that? I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the conviction I felt is because it was an addiction. And like I have a very addictive personality.
Yeah.
And for me, coffee was like, I was getting a high off of it.
Oh, really?
And that's why I would drink it, because I would get wired and feel great. And I'm like, dude, this is like any other drug, you know? So anyways, I felt conviction about those things. And I was like, all right, God, how long do I do this for? And he was like, 30 days. And I was like, crap, like now I have to do this. And so I did it for 30 days. And I think I hadn't watched porn for maybe like a week at that time. And the entire 30 days that I gave those things up for, I had like no desire
Wow.
to go watch porn. Obviously, I lusted, here and there, but I was so much more aware about it. And what I realized through it, and we talked about this the other day, is like, how can I expect myself to deny my flesh in such a big way, quote unquote, as watching porn, when I can't even do it in a smaller way? Like, let me control myself and not eat 10 cookies when I sit down.
That's honestly like such a great point. Like that reality that self-mastery, self-discipline in one area influences
all the
your
others.
discipline in other areas
Yeah.
is like a really powerful principle to understand, that, you start taking dominion in a sense of one part of your life, and it does something to the way that you handle all the other parts of your life. Like that's awesome that you've gotten to see that.
Yeah, it's been huge. And I just ended the fast on Saturday.
Did you have like a dozen cookies?
So that's the crazy part, is like sugar just isn't the same anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, I never thought I would say this, but I'll have like one cookie and I'm like, oh, that's good enough.
Wow.
So it's
Yeah.
really, it's done a tremendous work in my life.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
I do
So-
want to ask
Yeah.
something else that I feel like has worked, that we started around the time you started the fast, is doing a daily check-in. Because before, he would only confess when he watched porn. He wouldn't confess when he went to the grocery store and lusted after a woman. He wouldn't confess when he had a sexual dream. He, like, none of those things. He would just bottle them up.
And it really was not for your sake, but for his.
Yeah, because a lot of times that I would slip up and watch porn, there was so much that led up to that. There was so
okay.
many times where
Let's speak into this. I think this is the part where people struggle here. Is it's like, talk to me about the daily check-in, and did you like celebrate him when he didn't watch porn? I don't know if that's a weird way to put that.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
So what the daily check-in look like?
I've been counseled before to not tell my wife, because this person doesn't tell their wife because it's too hurtful and this and that. And I'm like, if that works for you, cool. But for us, Bree wants to know how I'm doing. And not out of a place of like, you need to feel shame for when you fail, but genuinely, she joined my side of the fight.
That
and
that
it's
is,
like,
I think, essential. If you're going to tell your wife, she's got to be on your team as opposed to, I don't want to say against you, but yeah.
well, sometimes it kind of would be, because she would feel like, again, I'm watching porn because I don't find her attractive.
Right.
And it's like, now we're taking different sides of the fight. But once we join together, and it's like, my check-in is just basically, she goes, hey, how did you do today? And I'm like, I went to the store, I saw this girl, I knew she was attractive, I looked a couple times. And sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes it's like, I watched a video and I was staring at this girl's butt the whole time. But it's very like genuine, open, vulnerable, and she prays the gospel over me, and then
so
we
good.
ask each other like, hey, what can we do to prevent that?
wild. Way to go.
And it's just amazing how much that's done for us, because now it's like, what I've told her before we did that is like, man, I feel alone when I was fighting this for so long. It was like, I know I have God, I know I have certain friends I can call, whatever, but every person in my life has let me down in helping me with this. And so I would just feel alone. And we realized this because I was bottling up so much of the battle and actually trying to fight it alone and being like, it's fine. Like, I see there's a girl there, but I'm not going to look. And just dealing with that until I couldn't do it alone anymore. And then I go and fall, and then I feel a lot of shame and guilt. But now it's like every single day, whether I do great or I do terrible, I get to confess to her, I get to tell her, and we get to celebrate together. Like, man, look at the work God is doing. Or we get to be like, hey, God forgives you. Christ died on the cross for your sins. But how can we move forward? And, what can we do to prevent that from happening again?
Wow.
I think something that really changed feeling like a team for us too is, I feel like everyone's told, hey, when someone confesses, pray for them. But no one says, okay, now you pray for the person you hurt. So when he started offering prayer to me, even though he needed, like, I should be praying for him for this and that he just confessed, when he would turn around and then pray for me to have a sound mind and to turn to Jesus and just humble himself, that helped me to then realize, like, oh no, we are a team. He does care about me. This isn't something personal. it's really hard to have hostility towards your spouse after they sat there and you prayed together about the situation. So I would just encourage anyone
that's a big deal. That's cool.
Yeah.
pray over, like both of you pray over one another in those moments of vulnerability.
So good.
Because it'll just realign your heart to then go and tackle it together.
Remedy for anxiety is prayer. That's what I'm hearing. Let's go back to the ultimatum. I think you were saying something, Cody, on the ultimatum earlier.
Which part?
I can't remember.
So we were talking about ultimatums, and I was like, "How do you think the ultimatums are positive or negative?"
What do you think, Holland? Ultimatums, good or bad?
I think, like in their relationship, it obviously produced something pretty good in that it was like a gut check for him of like, okay, reality check of like, I need to get serious. And it was before you're married,
Right.
you know? And so I think like what things, I'll be honest, when I hear ultimatum, I think like Jerry Springer. I think, you know, like, all right, let's settle, you know, and like, you better do this or it's over. And
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
but underneath, if we're just like really analyzing it, underneath ultimatums are standards.
Yeah.
And to be able to have a standard and say, hey, this is, you know, especially before you're married, to say, if you're not going to be this kind of man, I'm out. I think that's wisdom, to be honest.
Yeah.
And
That's a great ultimatum before you're married.
yeah, you know, in marriage, I don't think it's healthy. You know, if it's something like, hey, you know, there's been grounds for divorce already, and you're saying, hey, I'm willing to stick it out and try to heal and reconcile and work through this, but XYZ is going to need to change. You know, I'm like, I think there's wisdom in having standards, I guess. I think if you have a relationship where ultimatum type conversations are happening frequently, that's like really bad sign. That's really unhealthy. If that's happening all the time, like, and usually like an ultimatum, it comes at the tail end of a lot of unhealthy stuff that probably should have been dealt with in a more regular, you know, way beforehand, that it shouldn't have led up to this. And so it's just see it as like a red flag if it's happening a lot and stuff. But, you know, in the way that, I don't know, when you guys are describing them, I'm like, basically you were like, I have standards and you can rise to meet them, you know, or I'll find someone, I'll find someone else who will meet them. And I'm like, yeah, set the bar high and don't lower it. I think it's good.
Yeah, I think within marriage, the transactional nature of ultimatum is very hurtful to a covenantal relationship.
Right. It should be instead of you better change or I'm going to leave. In a marriage is I committed to you, and you know together we're going to pursue what God's best for us. Right. You're committed to building the relationship.
Or that hurt me. Like when you do that, that hurts me every time you do that. And I think the language of covenant is like, you know, if we are one flesh and you're hurting me, you're ultimately hurting yourself.
Yeah.
And that becomes hard to wrap your head around, because I think a lot of times, kind of like what you guys were saying, when it's me against you, then now you fall back into transactional relationship. When it's us together, it's covenantal, and whatever sin issue you're working through, it affects everyone. It's like, even if the sin isn't necessarily against one another, let's just go with the like you're addicted to sugar, or you know you're just eating mounds of cookies every day. That ultimately hurts both of you, even though it's a sin against your own body. But if your body's not your own, then you're one flesh in so many different ways. And so every sin affects everything. And so it's always ultimately going to affect you. Anyway, I think that's important to address, because just ultimating conversation makes me a little bit nervous. But in pre-marriage, absolutely, there should be some ultimatums. Right. You better follow Jesus with your whole heart. You better love God more than me. You better, all of that, like that kind of things are great ultimatums.
Because once you say I do, it's in till death do us part.
Right. Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, man, that was a nice ride. Any other final comments before we get out of here? All right. Thanks for watching. If you got any questions, just text us in at 737-231-0605 or go to pastorplek.com and leave a message for us there. We'd love to hear from you.